Okay, so this is lesson 2, and what we're going to do now is make our shoe look more three-dimensional by adding a range of marks to show the texture of different parts of the shoe, and also add tone and shading, your dark and your light areas, to give a 3D effect as well. So you probably aren't going to get the whole shoe shaded in today. So my advice is to start with an area of the shoe and work on that. And if you get more done, great. But if you don't worry about it. I would rather you had a small section of your shoe completed and done well with tone and shading than the whole of it sort of finished off and done quickly. Now, the first thing you need to do when you're thinking about tone and shading is looking at the direction of light. And where I am sitting at the moment, there is a window on the left-hand side. So this is why this part of the shoe here is lighter, and this is why this side here is darker. And there's a bit of light, more light is shining on this area here as well, but down here it's much darker as well because the window is on my left side here. Obviously inside the shoe is dark because there's very little light getting in there, but you can see it's very light here as well from where the light is catching it. Bit dark in there. So the first thing you need to do is you need to look at where your dark and your light areas are. That's going to help you decide where your light tones and your dark tones are. I've got 3 pencils sitting out. I've got a H pencil. A H pencil is a very light pencil, and that's for your lighter tones. Then I've got a 2B pencil, which is darker, as you can see. So when I use the side of it, it's much darker. And if you're lucky enough to have a 6B pencil, that's even darker, and we would use that very, very, very rarely. That'll be just a bit of tweaking right at the end. We won't use that so much. So you've got a H, a 2B and a 6B. And what I'm hoping that you have in your drawing, whatever area you decide to draw, you would have areas that are just white paper, and then you would have the 3 tones with the H, the 2B and the 6B pencil. So I am going to start in, I'm just thinking which part is the best place to start, and I think the best place to start is at the front here. I'm going to do a bit of tone and shading on this area here, and I'll bring the drawing up closer so that you can see it. So when I'm looking at this bit here at the front, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out lightly where the white areas are, and I've got this kind of lighter tone here in the shoe where the light is catching it, but then it's much darker in here. So I'm going to draw that light bit out very, very lightly, like that. And then I'm going to start with my H pencil. I'm not shading in dark to begin with, I'm starting light. And I'm shading where it's darker. And I'm actually just going to put a bit of white paper underneath my drawing so that the texture of the table doesn't come through. So I am doing a bit of texture here, doing a bit of tone and shading, and then texture in this bit here. So I'm shading that in. I'm using the side of my pencil, to do tone. And I'm shading that in. Now, when I'm looking at it, it's much darker here. So I'm going to lean a wee bit heavier with my H pencil, just to get it a wee bit darker. And a wee bit here. But there's only so far I can go with a darker tone with the H pencil. So then I'm going to pick up my 2B. And I'm going to do a bit of darker tone here, but what I want to try and do is to get my tones to blend. So I'm leaning lightly and then gradually getting heavier to bring the tone up darker, but I'm making sure that I'm getting it to blend. We don't want it to look liney, okay? And then there's another dark bit, really, really dark bit in there. Then I'm going to start on this side here. I'm not touching where the white is, or I don't know where the lightest area is yet. So here's a bit darker in here as well. And then I'm letting it fade out to where that white shape is that I drew, or where the light is shining on it. And I'm shading here, shading all of this in. I'm going to maybe draw another white area. I can see it's a wee bit lighter around this area here, because obviously the light's coming round and it's hitting it just there. So I'm going to shade this in, like so. And then it's really dark along here, so I'm going to lean a wee bit heavier. The H pencil again doesn't go too dark because it's quite a light pencil. It's really dark here. So then I'm going to take up my 2B. And I'm going to gradually build that up again. I'm not leaning too heavy to begin with, keeping it quite light and then building it up gradually so that you get a nice blending of tones. It's really important to get a nice blending of tones. And then it's really dark here. You're using the side of your pencil, not the point of your pencil, the side of your pencil, so that your tones will blend in. Now I want to make this lighter bit blend in a wee bit more, so I'm taking the edges and using my H pencil and shading those out a wee bit so that it blends in. And the same with these bits here as well. Get a bit more darker tones in. Tone and shading takes time. You have to be patient, very patient to build it up. Now, one thing that is different about this part here in comparison to this is soft fabric and it's got lots of lines in it, and this is obviously a kind of pink leather material here with the stitching on it. So I want to create the effect that this has got a nice texture, a different texture to that, which is smooth. So using my 2B pencil, I'm going to sharpen it to really sharp. And then I'm going to put in the lines. And obviously the lines are not going to go completely straight because this fabric bumps up and down. So it comes down, then it kind of comes up a bit and over, and then round. And there's lots of lines, which is then going to give you the texture. So you've put your tone and shading on, and then I've got all these lines here that are showing the texture of this material is a wee bit different. There we go. Lots of lines close together. Hopefully that emphasises, but what you can do, hopefully that emphasises the texture, but what you can do is pick up your 2B pencil again. Oops, I've just broken the leg there. Here I've got another one though. And just tweak some bits, and then I'm going to take my 6B, and it's really super dark around that corner there, and it's really super dark at the back there. So I'm going to use the 2B, the 6B rather, just to tweak those areas out and get a bit of darker tones. Again, making sure that I'm blending that in. It's quite dark up here. Now, if I now go to the kind of leathery bit here, it's quite different because obviously it's a bit softer and smoother. And we start shading. Again, whatever I shade, I start with my H pencil first. And looking at this, shade that in. Pink area comes down a wee bit. And goes round. And because I've shaded it all in, what I might do is I might just bring my rubber, because there's a light touch here which I can use to bring that out, just to bring the light out here a wee bit. And it's a wee bit lighter there, so I can use my rubber. I'm then going to pick up my 2B pencil, and it's darker down at the bottom here. So I'm going to add, starting lightly with the side of my pencil and blending it in with the H. Okay. And then one thing I have got, again, to show the texture is the stitching. And this is very important to get that stitching in. And if you notice, it's lots of little curved lines, with little holes in either end, to show that the needle has been through the leather. And there's 2 lines of that. And it's these tiny little details, when you put them on top of the tone and the shading, that really brings the shoe out and makes that look even more 3-dimensional than it already is. And it's this attention to detail that really will make your drawing so much more successful. And the stitching goes all the way around. I'll just do a couple of wee bits here, like that. And then underneath my pink leather bit, I've got another piece of fabric, and it's kind of like a kind of darker purple, so it's not as light as the pink and it's not as dark as this part up here. So I'm going to get that shaded in using, again, the side of my pencil. And I'm just going to rub out that wee line that I've made. There we go. And it's really dark because it's not getting any light at that point there at all. And then I'm going to get my 2B pencil, make it much darker. Like that. And then I'm going to use the 6B because it does have a tiny texture to it. It's got diagonal lines on it, lots of them. So I'm going to do all the diagonal lines on top. They're not as noticeable as this one. So I'll bring that a bit closer. Okay, so to see this close up, what I've done is I drew out where there was a white area, where there was light shining on it. I started with my 2B pencil and shaded the area in. With my 2H pencil. Then I used my 2B pencil to get my darker areas. And then I used a really, really sharp 2B pencil to draw the lines. So these are the types of marks that I'm making to show the texture of that. Then this area here was the leather, so it has a smooth effect, so I shaded that in with the 2H pencil, did a bit of 2B shading down at the bottom here, and then I've done the little curved lines to show where they're stitching. And then there was another area here, which was a kind of darker purple area as well. So it's about looking. It's about taking your time, looking carefully at what's in front of you, looking for where the dark and the light areas are, always starting with your 2H pencil or your 2H pencil, then moving on to your 2B, and if you're lucky enough to have a 6B, then you can do that, but that's only tweaking right at the very end, okay? So I will let you get on and do your drawing, and I'll do a wee bit more of mine. Obviously inside the shoe is dark because there's very little light getting in there, but you can see it's very light here as well, where the light is catching it.